Hello, my name is Rick Chandler, and welcome to another of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild's ongoing series of machine safety videos. Our discussion today will cover your introduction to the safety rules and requirements of the various bandsaws owned by the Guild and how to safely operate these popular pieces of equipment. Keep in mind that this video is meant to cover the safety concerns of this machine and not a complete training program for the use of the bandsaw. When in the shop, please direct any questions about using these or any other machines to the on-duty shop foreman. He or she is there to act as your main resource to help keep you safe and to provide advice and assisting you to successfully complete your project. You should always remember the most important of safety concerns is to wear OSHA-approved safety glasses with side shields at all times while in the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild shops. Your regular glasses are not approved for use when participating in any shop activity while you're at the Guild. When using any of our bandsaws, it is doubtful that the noise level would necessitate hearing protection, but if you feel more comfortable wearing earplugs or earmuffs, by all means do so. One caution on hearing protection though, Guild rules stipulate that any hearing protection may not have the ability to receive any type of broadcast music or podcasts. Failure to follow this requirement may result in losing your shop privileges. The bandsaw has a thin blade in the form of a continuous loop. It is useful for cutting curves, resawing, and cutting thick material. Before turning on the bandsaw, make sure that the blade tension lever is in the on position and that the blade tracks with the gullets tracking in the center of the tires when you rotate the wheels by hand. The teeth of the bandsaw blade should be pointing down toward the cutting surface of the saw. The blade should be 1/32 of an inch from the roller bearing guide behind the blade. There are guides both above and below the saw table, and both should be checked for proper adjustment. Side guide bearings or blocks should also be adjusted to 1/32 of an inch away from the sides of the blade and should be behind the teeth on the blade. If you aren't sure what the tolerances are or how to set them, check with the shop foreman, and they can help you the first time you're going through the process. Make sure that the upper and lower wheel guard doors are closed and latched before you turn on the bandsaw. Set the upper guide as low as possible to your workpiece without touching the wood you're going to cut. This guarantees that the blade is completely covered without room for a finger to accidentally slip under the guide. The maximum distance for the guide to be above the stock should not exceed 1/4 of an inch or as low as possible if you need to clear a fence mounted on the bandsaw. Any bystanders should be instructed to remain away from the right-hand area of the saw and not be closer than 24 inches from you while you're operating the saw. It is especially important to keep any bystanders away from the right-hand side of the bandsaw. Broken blades have a tendency to fly out to the right and may cause very serious injury to bystanders standing on the right side of the machine. To power up the bandsaw, ensure that all doors and covers are in place and latched. Then, first turn on the dust collector that attached to your saw, and once the dust collector is on, power up the bandsaw, first making sure that there are no objects touching the mounted blade. Make sure that the equipment has reached full speed before you approach the machine to begin cutting your material. Also remember, the 3-inch rule always applies. That is a 3-inch buffer on all sides of the blade. Your fingers, hands, and other body parts should never be allowed to become closer than 3 inches away from a moving part of the machine. It is also important that you not be wearing jewelry or loose clothing. If you have long hair, be sure that it's tied back so that there's no possibility of coming loose and making contact with any moving part of the machine. Never open any covers of a machine while it is running or starting a machine before any and all covers have been properly secured. Keep your fingers and hands away from the path of the blade. Never use your thumbs to push your workpiece toward the blade, even if you're pushing from many inches away. Hidden voids in your material may suddenly cause the wood to jump forward through the blade at seeming lightning speed, causing serious injury or amputation. When you're cutting small or short stock, use push sticks, feather boards, or other appropriate safety devices to control the workpiece as you make your cut. Do not force a cut. Allow the blade to dictate the rate of cutting. Forcing a cut can and will probably break the blade on the bandsaw. Don't cut stock that is not flat on the bottom without holding it in an appropriate jig. As an example, when cutting cylindrical objects, you should use a V-block as we're demonstrating here. When working with long or cumbersome material, set up a roller stand to support your work as it enters and leaves the saw. It can become impossible to support these materials without the help of some kind of support system. When making cuts with the table at an angle, clamp a block to the table to keep your stock from slipping off. While resawing wood, it is okay to start your cut when standing on the in-feed side of the blade, then letting go of your workpiece, circling around the machine to the out-feed side of the table, then pulling your material through the blade. Again, make sure you are drawing the wood through the bandsaw only as fast as the saw is able to handle the cutting the stock. If you're not cutting all the way through your stock, don't back the stock away from the blade without turning the machine off first. Turn the machine off and wait for the blade to come to a complete stop before backing out of a cut. If you're making curve cuts, you should plan your cut to prevent twisting or binding on the blade. Also, plan on where you will need to use push sticks or where it may be necessary to install a fence to keep you and others safe while cutting your stock. Each blade width has a minimum radius that is able to cut. We have charts posted on or near each bandsaw that show the minimum radius that a particular blade width can cut. If the blade does break, shut the machine off and stand clear until everything stops. Once the machine is stopped, unplug the saw from its power source and immediately notify the foreman on duty. They will assist you in changing the blade and getting the machine up and running properly again. You should never stick an object into the blade to stop the machine. Let it stop on its own or use the brake if the saw has one. The bandsaw produces a very fine sawdust, and this is sometimes not all captured by the attached dust collector. Dust depositing on the floor around the machine can cause the floor to become extremely slick and creates a significant fall risk. Pay attention to this and sweep or vacuum the floor when necessary. Don't be responsible for yours or someone else's fall injury. When finished using the machine, turn off the bandsaw and wait for the blade to come to a complete stop. Turn off the dust collector, check inside the machine and vacuum out any dust. Take a few extra moments to clean up the rest of the machine and the floor around where you've been working. This is Rick Chandler for the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. Thanks for watching and be safe.